Big announcement today from the UFC this morning on Good Morning America. They made the announcement for UFC 200 and who will headline that fight. We bring in Dave Sholler, the UFC PR guy, and, of course, local guy here from EHT. Dave, welcome back, pal. How are you?
Good, Mike. Just running around New York City today promoting UFC 200. As you mentioned, this morning on Good Morning America, we announced that John Bones Jones, fresh off of his win over Ovince St. Preux last Saturday night, will take on bitter rival Daniel Cormier in the main event of UFC 200 for the undisputed light heavyweight championship of the world. Just a huge day in our sport.
Now let's look back real fast. John Bones Jones, who had not fought for about 15 months there, he fights in UFC 197, which was just this past weekend. Won the fight. What'd you think of his performance in the fight overall? I mean, did he look rusty? I mean, did he look like the dominating guy he had been that many people put him as the pound-for-pound best guy out there, or maybe the biggest star in that sport? What'd you think of his performance Saturday night?
Well, let's start with the facts. I mean, he pitched a shutout. He won 5-0, 5 straight rounds. He showed those flashes of brilliance that have made him the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world. I think he would admit that he did look a bit rusty at times. He's been out of the octagon 15 months. So he did have some moments where he looked rusty, and I think he also had some moments where he looked absolutely brilliant. That being said, I think he was also playing it a bit cautious. He took that fight on less than 3 weeks' notice against a really powerful, athletic puncher in Ovince St. Preux. He got the job done, and he got what he wanted, which was his ticket punched for that rematch with Daniel Cormier.
So Daniel Cormier was supposed to be the opponent for that fight. He had to pull out due to injury. So now the rematch here, UFC 200. Give us the background and some history on why this is the headliner of UFC 200.
Well, originally the headliner was Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz, but as it was well documented on your show and many others, Conor McGregor had elected not to participate in the pre-fight promotional activities. As a result, we made the decision to move on from that fight and take a look at that fight at a later date when it was more convenient for Conor and the promotional schedule. So we got together after the fight on Saturday night, UFC 197, and John Jones is medically ready to go. Daniel Cormier is medically ready to go. And this feud dates back to 2014, where I infamously tried to stop those two from fighting in the lobby of the MGM Grand Garden Arena. They fought in January of 2015. John Jones won that fight unanimously. But the rivalry has not gotten any less intense. I can tell you, Mike, off camera today from Good Morning America, there were very heated moments. And at our press conference later today, I think you'll see those moments again. That press conference will be available at UFC.com for all the listeners at 97.3 ESPN.
Dave Sholler is with us, Vice President PR for UFC. UFC 200 is July the 9th in Vegas. It will be headlined by John Bones Jones and Daniel Cormier, and no McGregor on the card. Now, give us a little insight onto what happened there. He said he was out, then he said he was in, then basically it looks like Dana said, you're not going to tell us what to do. I guess you got to give him credit for basically not bucking into what McGregor's demands or wants were. But give us a little background on how the McGregor timeline got to where he is no longer included on this card.
Well, I think first things first, there was a lot of topics of discussion that this was about money. It was never, ever about money, and I can't say that any more clearly. It was not about money. Frankly, Conor had started his training camp in Iceland, where UFC welterweight Gunnar Nelson and his good friend live. So he started his training camp there. We had this big promotional kickoff last weekend in Las Vegas, where we needed Conor to participate in the TV commercial shoot, the photo shoots, the press conferences, etc. And he elected that it just didn't work for him, and as a result, it didn't work for us. No hard feelings. We'll look at booking Conor later this summer. Potentially against the winner of Frankie Edgar and Jose Aldo from UFC 200, or we could look at the Nate Diaz rematch. But what it really boiled down to is we expect our athletes to promote their bouts within reason, and Conor just elected that to not make the trip, and that's certainly well within his reason. But we had to go to another direction, and that direction was a really, really highly anticipated rematch between DC and John Jones.
So the new main event is set. Cormier and John Jones. Also, On that card announced this morning, it will be Miesha Tate and Amanda Nunes and Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar, as you just mentioned there. So a couple of titles on the line here. Give us a little background on those fights.
Well, Miesha Tate shocked the world at UFC 196 when she submitted Holly Holm to capture the title. She's a long-tested veteran of this sport. Now she faces Amanda Nunes, who's just really well-balanced. She trains out of the American Top Team Gym in Coconut Creek, Florida, which is one of the most storied gyms in all of our sport. That is going to be a fantastic end-to-end, wire-to-wire type of fight. And then Frankie Edgar, the New Jersey guy, spent a lot of time with him this morning. He looks to be in the best shape of his career at 33, 34 years old. The guy's like a bottle of wine. He keeps getting better with age. Against Jose Aldo, who prior to his loss to Conor McGregor was largely considered to be either number one or number two pound-for-pound best fighter in the sport, maybe pound-for-pound best fighter in the history of the sport. That is a dynamic rematch of a bout that they had a couple of years ago where Edgar narrowly lost. That's a fantastic fight for the interim 45-pound title. And a fight that's quietly flying under the radar from UFC 200, the return of former heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez. As he meets Travis Brown, the winner of that fight will be supremely positioned for a shot at the heavyweight title. Just a really, really good card top to bottom. Another Jersey guy in Jim Miller is on the card. You've got Diego Sanchez on the card. You've got Sage Northcutt. Top to bottom, Mike, this is just a fantastic card.
Yeah, Dave Scholler's with us from the UFC. Looking at UFC 200, it was announced today that July the 9th, it will be John Jones taking on Cormier. And Jones, I guess, after the fight, he was nursing a sore foot. Any problems there? I guess there's nothing foreseen if he's ready to go for 200.
No, spent a good time with him this morning as well. He was perfectly fine walking around the set of GMA. I think that was just a bit of a casualty of throwing a lot of heavy leg kicks against a really sturdy opponent. But medically, he's fine. He'll be ready to go for July 9th.
All right, Dave. One thing for sure that the Cormier-Jones fight, these two guys, you could probably attest to this, they don't particularly care for each other. Is that fair to say?
It is so fair to say.
This goes back to 178, right? I mean, this is where this kind of started.
It goes back to a little guy from Egg Harbor Township being put on the map by being thrown off a stage in the MGM Grand Garden Arena. It's a situation where this is not manufactured drama. This isn't fake heat. This is legitimate beef, and it's going to finally be settled July 9th. I'll tell you what, circle that date on your calendar because that is the date where I think the sports world will be putting all eyes on Las Vegas.
So after 200, where does the winner of these matches, where are they looking for next?
Well, I think you'd be hard pressed to argue that if John Jones were victorious on July 9th, that he couldn't be a contender to headline our first ever card at Madison Square Garden on November 12th, our first event in New York in so many years prior to the regulation of our sport just a few weeks ago in the state of New York. You'd have to think that John Jones, along with Chris Weidman, Ronda Rousey, and a few others, would be contenders to headline that card. Daniel Cormier threw a little wrinkle into the mix today, and he said today, if he wins the fight on July 9th, he would be happy to grant John a rematch on November 12th at Madison Square Garden. So the scenarios are abundant, and the one thing I like about the sport right now, Mike, no shortage of great fights, no shortage of great action. And when you look down the calendar, whether it's the return of Ronda Rousey, the return of Holly Holm, now the return of Conor McGregor, there's a lot of great stories that are going to propel us to the rest of the year.
Is November 12th the return of Ronda, and would she face Tate if Tate wins at 200?
Still sorting that out. It's certainly an option, but Ronda still has yet to commit to her firm return. I think she has said November and December are on her targeted wish list of dates. But I think the thought process is she would fight the winner of the July 9th women's bantamweight title fight.
Saturday night, my remote was getting a workout. I had Triple G. I had your card. It was I had the workout going. A lot of action.
I'll tell you what, that Triple G, who also is a huge UFC fan, he is a phenomenal boxer to watch. Just big power. Woo. I watched the fight again last night from my hotel room here in New York. I'm not sure there's been a boxer in quite some time with heavy hands in both his left and his right. That guy's insane.
Unbelievable. All right, Dave Sholler with us, UFC 200 is July the 9th in Vegas. UFC card coming to New York's Madison Square Garden on November the 12th. We'll keep our eyes on that card as well. All right, pal. Take care, man.
Thanks, Mike. I'll see you this weekend for Lou Pepper, Margate Hurricane. Legend, his wedding this weekend. I will be in South Jersey. Can't wait to be back.
All right, brother. Hit me up. Looking forward to it. Dave Sholler, everybody.